sees the means of production, and the like and subscribe button. No. Why would a migrant worker be less economically capable of supporting the costs of a welfare state than a non-migrant worker? If you were talking about like people who are unemployed, then obviously that would be quite difficult. Yeah, like millions and millions of unemployed migrants, that would be difficult to support. But they get jobs, you know, and they pay taxes. Studies have shown refugees that came in 2015 have already been economically profitable to Germany because of tax returns. Yeah, literally, it's labor is a resource. More people coming in, yeah, it's as long as your system is on average per citizen running at a net profit, like you're generating sufficient tax revenue from the average citizen, they will fall into that, you know? Yeah, I still think that MERS is going to end up partnering with the AfD. We'll see. We need a massive cultural pushback, like an overwhelming pushback, which I'm hoping the recent rise in Die Linke's popularity. Nah, you're crazy. He doesn't have the seats. We'll see. We'll see, okay? My country is currently being raped to death by one retard half-trillionaire, all right? I'm not in the mood for your damn optimism. We'll see. He just said it isn't an option for him. Oh, a politician said something. Oh, you're right. He said it. That's crazy.
It would be so difficult to make these things, to do these things. We just have to talk about the European legal perspective. We've got a very clear position on that, but that we need to limit migration into Germany is uncontended, undisputed.
But it's not in law. You made a promise. You might not be able to keep it.
Right. I have the intent to keep this promise that I have made.
Now, Mr. Scholz, if we look at your party now and say, would you support Mr. Merz in that? Would you say this is something that he can do with the SPD from day one, very, very quickly, to agree?
Hold on. Wait, you wanted me to look at a research paper talking about the consequence? This is 274 pages. What can I possibly look at to evaluate here? Also, is this actually like vetted research, or is this a gigantic thought dump from, hold on one second, check page 14. Do you know this paper? What do you think, I'm gonna read all this? Abstract results. It's 274 pages. There are no results. Apparently they got blacklisted from the Dutch university for this. Wait, is this like an infamous paper? Hold on. Oh, wait, what am I even doing right now? Why would I take this seriously? It's literally called Borderless Welfare State. It's not borderless. This is far-right propaganda. Borderless welfare state? This is outrage farming. This isn't actual research. Borderless? The only people who claim any of these countries are borderless are people who want to whine about immigration. It's an unserious way of describing the problem. Book review. Oh god, the book review is also long. I scrolled through one page of the review and I saw IQ scores. Yeah, I think I have a feeling, I think I know who made this. So what even is this? Like, is this a paper? I'm looking at a PDF right now, but like, what is this like as a piece of research? I shouldn't even be looking at this, I guess. I'm just kind of like amused by the audacity of the person in chat who provided me a 270-page racist far-right propaganda piece to support a point about immigration. The author has a huge critics section on Wiki, red flag. According to NRC, Van de Beek is on the... Wait, Van de Beek? Don't I know that name? Haven't we talked about this guy before? His calculations have not been subjected to scientific peer review. Independent scientists have not looked at this stuff. Scientific content is controversial according to the NRC. This is translated to English. His report clashes strongly with the conclusions of other scientists in a number of points. Political scaremongering, selective shopping of the facts. Yeah, I've heard about this guy, Van de Beek. I swear to God, we've talked about him before. It was funded by the Forum for Democracy, a fascist party here in the Netherlands. Look at this sentence from the second page of the paper. An earlier version of this book sparked debate in the Netherlands. The Dutch government stated they did not need this type of information. One could only guess the underlying reason for this position. Is it the inconvenient message from borderless welfare state that, if immigration continues by the current numbers and composition, welfare states like the Dutch one become unsustainable? This is what I mean about developing like a critical eye to media, as opposed to just understanding which sources are good, because you can read propagandizing like so immediately once you develop an eye for it, you know? Like, just like that, like, oh, this is like a racist who's fear-mongering, you know? Media literacy? Yeah, media literacy, you know? All right. We need to finish that video from the German leaders. Wow, he believes Orthodox Islam and Western culture are incompatible. What a novel position. Look at the map soon, it's almost my bedtime. There. God damn, the the sea of AFD over here. Sheesh. Berlin, they're still getting results. Germany's getting blacked. It's true. So does the AFD have a chance? They're still at like 20.5%. This little chunk's doing okay. In Leipzig, sorry. Die Linke after they got rid of Wagenknecht. True. Circle got smaller. Vision got larger. Get big. I have no idea what this means. That's okay. That's all right, white boy.
Agree this in coalition agreements? Well, even if it is your ambition to enter into conversations and discussions and exploratory talks that nobody's invited anyone else to, let me say that there is a position that we took that's very clear, which says that apart from improving the citizenship law that we have amended, we want to ensure prosperity for the future. We want to protect those who are being persecuted. Germany must always give them protection, and everything we're doing has to be done within the framework of EU law. And that is why it is very good that we managed last year to ensure that the number of people entering into Germany irregularly or illegally has dropped by 100,000. This year it'll be another 100,000. And that we have the European asylum system, which is law, has to be implemented, because many of the practical problems that we have with repatriating people who applied for asylum in a different European country.
If the CDU pursues the immigration bill, it might immediately kill this government. I mean, the AFD would go with it. Wouldn't there be enough people from the SPD to go with it?
Then be solved if we were to enforce it. This is our position, and we're not going to change it. Now, the SPD, will you help Mr. Merz keep his promise? I said we're not going to break our promises. Are you going to be negotiating? I think you can assume you'll be invited to enter into a discussion. Well, we'll have to see what the final election result is, but if there are talks between the SPD and the Union, it's not going to be the SPD leading these talks. I said that the position I would like is German Chancellor, and this is...
The CDU's immigration bill is not right-wing enough for the AFD, apparently. Hold on. CDU immigration bill. What do they actually want to do? I'm going to find like a summary. German immigration bill rejected despite far-right backing. Rejected by whom's? That's for the AFD. Bill is defeated 350 to 338. God, that's narrow. It seems like it's not too... liberal for the AFD. They seem to be backing it. What are the details of the bill? Far-right vote in asylum rocks German parliament. A non-binding motion call for tougher border and asylum rules passed with support from both the AFD, CDU. Defended his actions unnecessary. Could they describe what these are? Wednesday's CDU motion supported by the AFD and liberal FDP, called for a ban on anyone entering Germany without the right documents, but it cannot compel the current minority government to act. Okay. This firewall ain't shit, by the way. They are going to work with the AFD. I'm telling you guys.
The position that I talk to citizens about, it remains a huge honor to be Chancellor of Germany, but I'm not going to be Chancellor in...
No, they aren't. You don't know what you're talking about. Can somebody... I'm genuinely asking, can somebody in chat explain to me why there are Germans in chat who are telling me that it's impossible when literally 1 month ago, the impermeable firewall was broken by a conditional agreement to work together on immigration? Like, the last thing that happened was already this kowtowing. Why are you so confident? I'm telling you it's impossible, and I'm telling you to explain why. It is disbelief history happening. Yeah, you motherfuckers aren't just liberals, right? You're not just SPD voters who are just clucking their tongues to me supporting Die Linke, and you chastise us over here in America for our conservative politics, but you can't see it happening over there as well? Because I don't know what's giving you this confidence. A lot of CDU supporters hate the AFD. Okay. And 4 years ago, the Republican Party was uniformly anti-Russia. What happened? Or 5 or 6 years ago, I suppose. Things change. Don't look at what people support. Look at the material conditions. Merz hates the AFD. Who the f cares? All Republican politicians hated Trump until he won. Look at the material conditions. It's not about what people like or what they want. These people are just pawns in a big game. What matters are the underlying economic, social, and political conditions that lead to power being distributed the way they are. The AFD right now is the kingmaker. I feel like they're going to kowtow. Merz has already worked with the AFD, already broken the firewall. Yeah, what's with this "it can't happen here" posting, motherfucker? It literally happened there. After Jan 6, a bunch of Republicans disavowed DJT. Within a year, they were backing him again. Yep. Republicans were insistent that Project 2025 wasn't real. Not in this election cycle. It's too soon. Merz's own party isn't ready. Maybe, maybe not. Just like a lot of people in chat are just like, nope, can't happen. No way. No shot. It's like, why? What gives you the confidence, man? I'm sorry. Do you think that neoconservatives are principled? Look what happened here in the United States. All of them bent the knee. You don't understand lying is an American concept. Lying would go against the German principle of dann Weindienstung, which means to tell the truth. So to lie would be a grievous offense in German society and in politics. Yes, I know. Fakten tellen. That's so much better.
CDU-led country. Is the SPD going to increase prices? Well, the SPD is very much representing social justice, stable pensions, statutory minimum wage. That's what we're aiming for. Now, Mr. Habeck, you can also drive the prices up if you want to be part of it. But if we're staying with migration policy, is this something where if you enter into a coalition with 3 or 4 parties, do you think you will reach an agreement and do it quickly?
Well, it's not a question that would go to me alone, but I'm a little bit worried when you take a look at this.
Look at Austria. We barely escaped our Christian party coalitioning with the far right, despite them saying they would never pre-election. Their word isn't worth shit. Yeah, like neocons are literally just one favorable poll away from AFD. If anything, there's more of an incentive now for the conservatives to align with the AFD because the AFD have literally like doubled their size in the past 4 years, you know?
Talk, which focuses on talks to be held later, then I'm worried because there is no time to be lost. There are a lot of topics that are very urgent. The American government, I'm not talking about the Americans, but Donald Trump and the people around him are attacking the Western community of values. They let down, betray Ukraine, which is the worst kind of imperialism we're witnessing right now. And Europe needs to find its own strength in areas where it hasn't come to an agreement in terms of defense policy, foreign policy, and all that needs to be funded right now. Now, if we follow the normal game, the rituals of coalition negotiations, it will take until Easter or even the summer season, then we're going to fail historically. And everybody sitting at this table needs to understand that. And if we find an agreement, then my advice would be...
Vaush is intently observing. It's a huge deal. This is a huge deal. Where Germany goes, like the rest of Europe will not necessarily follow, but there's influence, you know? Germany's literally and economically the center of Europe. So it's pretty important.
That this agreement needed to be implemented very swiftly. We cannot look into all the minutiae of heating installation and migration. Now we are in a historic situation which we haven't seen before. The Americans do not let down Europe. That even goes further. They work against Europe. That needs to be addressed and solved very fast, and the financial steps have to be taken very fast
now,
as well.
Are these arguments that convince you, Mr. Söder, when it comes to the difficulties of foreign policy?
Well, to compare heat insulation and migration,
I guess here's my question. What could the CDU do to possibly appeal to their voters that isn't just being a watered-down version of the AFD? Honest question. Is there anything, any economic proposal, any social proposal that isn't just Hitlerism light? Because my understanding is that conservatism in Europe has largely been dominated by anti-migration sentiment, and that's basically it. Okay, pro-EU, anti-Russia, anything else? Economic growth? Everyone says economic growth. That's all I'm getting. That's not a lot to go off of, guys. That's not a lot to go off of. So apart from foreign policy, and that's exactly what you've described, for all domestic policy, they are just a watered-down version of the AFD. Is that correct? There's nothing else for them to campaign on? The main difference is Russia? That's not a lot to go on. That's not great, guys. That's not great at all. You realize that, right? I mean, that's pretty important. It's not enough. It means they have no vision for the people of Germany that isn't just a watered-down version of what the AFD would push. EU is not foreign policy, it's domestic policy. Well, okay, we don't have an equivalent of that in the United States. It's kind of both. Obviously, Germany is part of the EU, but it's also like kind of a foreign body, but also in Germany, it's like they're the center of the EU anyway, so blah, blah, blah. Yeah, it's literally just the EU, Ukraine, and Russia. Okay, yeah. That's not great.
That is bizarre. Maybe it was
result doubles in shocker for German democracy.
Look, it's like with America. What matters most is the direction. What matters most is the trajectory, the narrative. What matters most is what is your vision for the future. And if you're the CDU, what is your vision for the future? What bold plan? What course are you heading, Captain? And the answer is like nothing. And that's the reason why the Democrats lost to the Republicans. The Republicans have a bold vision for the future. The Democrats just want to keep things the way they are with minor fiddling, but nobody likes how things are right now. That's simple. That's it, you know? CDU vision for the future is basically the same, except more clamping down on migrants, more socially conservative, keep the EU as it is. Okay, it's just not a very convincing doctrine. I'm not reading a 10-page PDF, Subs and Soda. I think what would keep a German CDU voter from going to the AfD is shame. That is not... The fact that the argument against being a Nazi is that it would be shameful to be a Nazi is insane to me. That's crazy. That's not good enough, man. Shame is a really bad way to motivate people. Spite, that's great. But shame is a fundamentally unproductive emotion. It doesn't met good behavior from good people or from bad people. In Germany, it's more effective than the US. I'm sure they felt that way after they signed the Treaty of Versailles as well.
We have experienced attacks, people die.
You don't understand how Germans think, Vaush? Okay, Wursthandler. Dude, people are people, okay?
They cannot be compared to this heating legislation.
Live from Berlin, this is DW News.
Yeah, give me more. Give me more.
Huge. We've seen that forming a coalition in the past can be very difficult, but with this type of turnout, and you could argue you do have a mandate.
Subs and Soda, the fact that to explain to me what the CDU wants for the future, you linked me a 10-page PDF rather than giving me like a bullet point or two is exactly the point. Nobody's reading that shit. Certainly not me. Every party in the world can give you a 10-page PDF on their bold vision for the future. None of it means shit. The Democrats can give you 1,000 pages. Did it mean anything? No. A vision, bold vision.
To get something done here, is that going to put pressure on parties to take responsibility and to do something for the country?
Absolutely. I mean, this country is politicized as it hasn't been for the last 30 years. So this is, I believe, the biggest turnout that we've seen since 1990. So, you know, a massive amount of people really going to the polls and making it very clear that they want their voices to be heard. A lot of it had to do, of course, with that very fierce debate about migration that we had, with AfD voters going to the polls, making it clear, OK, we must pursue a very hardline policy, something...
The point is not that the CDU has a great vision. They don't. That's clearly different, however, from the vision the AfD has. Yeah, but a vision is always better than no vision. Even if your vision is monstrous, at least you have something to convince people over towards.
Mental has to change, but equally on the other side, a party like the Left Party managed to mobilize huge amounts of people is exactly with that
message. The CDU backs Germany's net zero goals by 2045, supporting hydrogen over heavy coal phase-outs. The AfG rejects climate policies as hysteria, opposing renewable funding and emissions target, claiming they harm the economy. I don't think the CDU will ever pivot on this. Why not? Why not? Or what if the CDU, like, just worked with them on everything else and just bickered over the, like, fiddly climate policy stuff? It's like they don't believe anything. That's the reason why they won't work with the AfD. Guys, they're just politicians, dude. They don't believe in things. Do you think American politicians are like unique in their grift and graft and disingenuity? I'm literally getting arguments from chat right now that are essentially saying like, well, they would never because the CDU is principled. What the f are you talking about, man? Whatever.
We mustn't let the AfD get
This is what happened with Canada as well. I went after Trudeau and every fucking Canuck was after me with their with a damn Zamboni trying to run me down.
Ultimately, how many parties are going to be in? And even Friedrich Merz is hoping that the FDP, so his natural coalition partner, doesn't make it into parliament because that would make coalition forming more difficult.
All right. Well, forming a government, of course, is complicated by the insistence of all the parties that they will not work with the AfD. We're going to have more on that in just a moment.
Hey, hey. Okay. Ba, 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 ba.
You're watching a special edition of The Day with coverage of the German elections. The results show change is on its way. Friedrich Merz of the Conservatives is the man with the best chance of becoming chancellor, but the impressive showing of the far-right alternative for Germany is also our focus. I want to recap the numbers for you briefly. Sure. The Social Democrats dropping to 16%. The Conservatives.
Okay. AFD has gone from 20.5 to 20.2 since the last update I saw. That's nice. And literally any tick down is good. CDU, a full 1.2 points down from 30. And left holding strong at around 8.5.
Finishing top with around 29%, the Greens at 12%, and the Left Party getting almost 9%, and arguably the biggest winners.
When was this video uploaded? This is live. We're watching a live newscast.
With 20%. And that means the AFD have more than doubled their share of the vote from the 2021 elections.
Yay.
Alice Weidel is the AFD's pick for chancellor, although it's highly unlikely that she will get that job. Other parties have ruled out working with the far-right group in a coalition government. The 46-year-old is the party's co-chair. She has a doctorate in economics. As a politician, she's known for her anti-migration rhetoric. Weidel and the AFD put migration at the heart.
Isn't the CDU trying to be the alternative to the alternative? Not really, no. They're just the status quo. The CDU just represents the status quo, along with the SPD and Green to a large extent. They don't really have bold visions for the future.
Part of their program pledging to carry out mass deportations and an asylum crackdown. They want Germany to abolish the euro. They want to reintroduce...
The AFD is best described as MAGA. The CDU is best described like 80s Republicans. They hate each other. But they don't. The 80s Republicans turned into MAGA on a dime when it was politically convenient for them. Like, Reagan was every Republican's favorite politician until the nanosecond that it was politically expedient to drop all of that and suddenly become like a MAGA guy who was pro-Russia or whatever. Literally, there are hundreds of Republican politicians in Congress who went from being militantly anti-Russia, who were criticizing Obama for being too light on them back in 2014, to being like, what do you mean? Russiagate's a hoax. Donald Trump did nothing wrong. It was the best phone call ever. And Putin's actually destroying wokeness in Ukraine, which is great. All of them. Like, that's my point, man. They don't believe in anything. They're just the sum of forces enacted on them. They're not people. They don't have principles. They're just symbols occupying a meaty body.
The German Deutschmark, and potentially, although they took this off of their platform, but still they've talked about it, leaving the European Union. And they've pledged to lift sanctions imposed on Russia over its invasion of Ukraine. And they say they want to start importing Russian gas once again.
Yay.
Well, here is the AFD's co-chair, Alice Weidel, speaking to party members after the announcement of that result, which will make the AFD the second strongest party in the German parliament.
Yay.
And as we've seen in the exit polls, what we've seen is that we are the only party who have doubled our position over the last election.
That's true. There is one that tripled it. Well, I guess that doesn't really count, right?
They wanted to cut our numbers in half, but the opposite is what has occurred. And one thing is for sure, we will always have an open hand to get involved in a coalition in the German government. The will of Germany is something we will implement. We are always prepared to fulfill the will of the people in a German government.
And with me here at the big table, again, our chief political correspondent, Nina Haase. Benjamin Tallis is with the Democratic Strategy Initiative here in Berlin. And joining us from Washington, D.C. is political scientist and author Yascha Mounk. He's an expert on the crisis of liberal democracy and the rise of populism. Yascha, let's get right to you. About 20% going to the far right, the AFD, both Friedrich Merz and Alice Weidel. They've been promising change for Germany. Do you think change is coming?
I'm not sure it is. I think in terms of public opinion, this election shows a remarkable turnaround. Would
AFD entering in a coalition government be a mistake like it would be with Die Linke? Well, Die Linke isn't going to work with the CDU. The CDU would have the CDU has no need to coalition with Die Linke in order to rule. In order to rule as a majority government, the CDU would have to partner with the SPD and AFD or the Greens or Die Linke. And it's not going to be Die Linke, you know? It's likely SPD and Greens that they would try to coalition with. There's not really an incentive for them to coalition with Die Linke. That being said, they're going to end up working together with the AFD on immigration stuff, so, you know, CDU and SPD would be enough. No. Aren't they still like a few points short? With just... If they can do it with just CDU and SPD, that would be an incredibly tenuous coalition. Like, they'd be like razor-thin margins.
10 years ago, that at the height of a refugee crisis, Germany decided to keep its borders open to welcome millions of refugees into the country, and there was cross-party consensus on that at the time, including a majority of public opinion, at least temporarily. At this point, it is clear that virtually all parties have significantly departed from that point of view, and the two parties that have been most vocal about that, the Christian Democrats under the leadership of Friedrich Merz, who has changed the party's political course very distinctly compared to his predecessor Angela Merkel, and of course the AfD under Alice Weidel, are the two big winners of this election today. Now, the problem, of course, is
Isn't
that
she dating a Syrian
under
woman?
Germany's
Isn't she like
political
Indonesian?
system at the moment, it's
Her
very
girlfriend?
difficult to effect change, because even when there's clear shifts in public opinion, you end up having a game of
Sri
musical
Lanka,
chairs in which four parties vie for seats and one or perhaps two sit it out. But you always end up getting these ideologically incoherent coalitions between parties with roots on the center-right and parties with roots on the center-left.
Yeah.
And clearly what we're going to see in the next months is the Christian Democrats under Friedrich Merz helming up a government, but with a center-left partner, either the Social Democrats or both Social Democrats and the Greens. And it'll be very hard for that coalition to actually change the country significantly.
Well, with 1 in 5 German voters giving their support for the far right, I mean, does a political consensus that no one will work with the AfD, do you think, have a chance of surviving?
I think it depends on what the government now does. I think that there's two areas in which German voters have very clearly expressed their concerns, however one might personally feel about that. The first is that they're clearly showing that they want Germany to have strict control of its own borders, and that they want to make sure in particular that people who made claims for asylum that have been rejected actually leave the country. And secondly, they're rightly concerned about the deep economic malaise in which Germany currently finds itself. The German economic model, which worked so well for many decades since the end of World War II and the beginning of the economic miracle in the 1950s and 1960s, is now breaking apart. And if the new government is able to actually tackle those 2 points, to reassure people in particular that they're taking care of public order and that we're not going to have to see attacks virtually every few weeks as we have in the last months. And if they're able to show that Germany can be a real player in the world, can renew the European continent on the economy, can renew...
Again, like, all of this signals movement to the right. You guys know that, right? Like, everything, all of this, secure our borders and revitalize our national industry and secure our place in the world. The CDU just isn't offering anything that it represents a meaningful departure. Like the arc, the trajectory is moving in that direction. You need a strong narrative pushback. You need a unified front against this that isn't just, oh, well, you're how brave of you, but what are you going to do for the future of this country? What is Die Linke going to do? Well, Die Linke actually has some pretty good policy propositions, is my understanding. So they're radical in a lot of cases, which means that they can push them as a distinct narrative, which is good.
Its model for the future, then they might be able to reduce the vote of the AfD without having to break down that Brandmauer, break down that firewall with the AfD. If
Under Merkel, the CDU is fairly liberal. Yeah, but Merkel's literally the reason Germany's in this position now. Like, Merkel was like the Merkel was basically like the Bill Clinton, George Bush, Obama type. We're seeing like the decline of liberalism as a thing capable of moving change. People's dissatisfaction rises, you know. Yeah, she was chancellor for like 500 years or something. So she oversaw the stagnation post 2008. I want to know what's so good about Die Linke for you. They're the left party. Also, you're the person who gave me that far right anti-immigrant propaganda that was 300 pages and asked me for my opinion on it earlier, in case you thought I forgot your username. Galinka also helps people with rents and candidates give their high pay away. Well, there are a lot of the people there care, you know?
Fail in these important undertakings, then the AfD really will be at the door of government in 4 years' time, or perhaps even sooner than that.
And Nina Friedrich Merz has said he's been adamant about not working with the AfD.
Yeah, that's what he kept saying during the election campaign. And then we saw a very remarkable moment in the last session of Bundestag just a few weeks ago, where he pushed through a motion that only managed...
Why do you think the CDU is bad, besides your claim they will pivot? Do you watch my content at all? You don't have the new chattered icon. You've been here since mid-2024. They're a neoconservative party that's worked with Nazis to bar immigration. What do you mean? For everything? Like, if you literally like everything they are, I hate that. You know? What about testicular torsion do you dislike? I don't know. Let me pull out like a pen and paper. I think I might dislike quite a bit about it. What is your issue with AIDS? Well, I haven't had it, but I've heard that there are a number of bad symptoms. I don't know if I've heard many positives.
To be successful because the far-right AfD voted with him. And that did cause an outcry, and people accused him of having broken his word. And you do have to say, this is something where a lot of conservatives were reluctant. There is a lot of pressure also from conservative leaders, especially in the East, where the AfD reached some up to 40%. So nationwide, they're at 20, but in the East, in some constituencies, they're looking at 40, and lots of people there from the...
Revising my previous position on arrogant Western Germans talking Eastern Germans, you can do it again. This is my shift towards anti-rural rhetoric as the rural America gets more and more like cleanly far right, which is that they've earned it. Congratulations. You can't be mean to them because they're poor or stinky or because of their like Soviet history. You can about them being Nazis, though. You're allowed.
Conservatives have said for a long time, this is getting really hard for us,
you
know, not to push through political projects if we can only do it with the AfD. And now, of course, these people are saying, if you're doing it on the national level, so how can I tell my mayors not to do it with the AfD?
Well, Benjamin, let me pick up on that. I mean, what is the political value of telling 20% of your electorate, 20% that voted for the AfD, your votes are going to be ignored? They're worthless.
Your suit looks like shit, by the way.
Because you tell 80% of the electorate our democracy still matters, and we stand up against the members of the AfD who are legally allowed to be called fascists. I mean, you get with Alice Weidel, you get a wolf in sheep's clothing, rules. But with Hocker, you get a wolf in wolf's clothing.
These two are based. This guy's a fuckwit. Is the impression I'm getting? The blue guy, yeah, the blue guy is the impression that I'm getting. How can you say that the 20% of the country that voted for Nazis? How can you say that their votes don't matter? F you. I will say that actually.
And vote Weidel, get Hooker is what actually Merz is able to very clearly say, that's not what you're voting for, I'm protecting you against that. And Merz has a golden opportunity, Brent, because he's going to be a one-term chancellor. This is about national duty and responsibility.
Why do you say that?
I'd say it because I think Merz is of an age where he's reached the peak of his political career, being 69. He's a grandfather. I don't think he's likely to go beyond that. There are others waiting in the wings in the CDU. Hendrik Wüst is one of them, but there are others too. This has to be a government about national duty, national responsibility.
Yeah, cool that over in Germany you're considered to be an old politician when you're in your 60s, and meanwhile in the Democratic Party they don't even let you in on the inner circle meetings until after your like 85th birthday or something. You know,
national security and delivering that change that would keep the AfD out. And Merz has been clear about that. He says, how do you defeat the AfD? You solve the problems they feed on.
Yasha, do you see an opportunity for the established parties, let's say people, like Friedrich Merz, to claw back the political ground that they have obviously, lost to the far right in this election?
I hope they will, and we've seen in some European countries where that's possible. In Denmark, it was a social democratic prime minister who got tougher on migration, has been in office at this point, I believe, for over a decade. And has actually managed to reduce significantly the support for the far-right populist party there. But it will take real changes of policy for that to happen. And I'm somewhat skeptical that this new coalition, whether Again, it depends a little bit on whether one of the parties ends up getting 5% or 4.9%, whether we're going to have Christian Democrats and Social Democrats govern together or have to add the Green Party as a third party to that coalition. It's going to be very hard for them to do that because Social Democrats and Greens are going to resist changes of policy on migration. And because in terms of the attitude towards economic policy, Friedrich Merz comes from a completely different world than the Social Democrats. And so, this, I think, is a fundamental problem that the system of proportional representation in Germany, with a strong presence of parties on the far left, like the Linke, and the far right, like the AfD, now creates, where, every government is ideologically incoherent. Every government contains parties that significantly dislike each other, that serve very different electorates. And so ordinary voters think, well, we all went to vote today. It was this wonderful record participation in the vote. But in the end, we have a game of musical chairs, and this government is not going to be all that different from the governments that Angela Merkel headed, or that different from the government that Olaf Scholz has headed just now. And it's unclear anything is going to change. Musical chairs. Let me ask you guys, we've got about 40 seconds left. Which parties are going to be in the coalition, the new government?
Conservatives, SPD and Greens.
3 parties? What do you say, Ben?
Whoever it is, Brent, and I would agree with that assessment, they've got to find a way to show Germans that they're there for their future and against what Moscow is trying to impose on them, as well as against the threat to German democracy.
Okay, we've got 20 seconds. Do you think whatever makes...
Literally, it all comes down to just putting full stops to external migration to Germany? No, I don't think that's true, man. Nazis don't need big migration numbers to get mad at. Like, immigration went down in the end of Biden's presidency, but they still talk about the border like it's on fire, I don't think that's true. It's not enough. Like, you can't say, like, don't worry, the racism will get less popular after we ban all black people from restaurants or whatever, You have to cut the problem off at its root. Also, like, the majority of these AfD voters, I guarantee you, are rural East Germans that aren't even that near the migrants. The migrants are in Berlin and Hamburg and shit, right? It's not like ye old Joe Cotton in the farms bordering Poland. Oh, my local village is now 20% migrants or something. It's like this everywhere. Over in America, where are all the migrants coming in? They settle in the cities. The rural communities are basically unchanged. That's the problem. They've just been dying for decades, A county that got 50% AfD voters had 3% immigration pop. Yeah, literally, it's pathetic. The closer you are to migrants, the more pro-migrant you're likely to be. The closer you are to black people, the more pro-black people you're likely to be. The closer you are to trans people, the more pro-trans you're likely to be. Everywhere around the world, it's the same damn story every time. It's not actually about reality. It's not about proximity. It's about narratives. It's all the narratives they hear. Their ass dying backwater East German town has been dying for decades, and then they go turn on the news, and German Rush Limbaugh is telling them how the reason they haven't gotten, like, money from the government is because it's all going to, like, migrant transgender wheelchairs or something, Because these retards don't know what's better for them. So they vote for the idiot with the biggest bullhorn, who's willing to sell them the most satisfying narrative of change. Finish the thing.
New government,
we have to do
will
segments.
It hold longer than 1 year?
The SPD has to make some fundamental changes, and then it can.
Okay.
Friedrich Merz has to lead, and if he does, then they can last.
Okay, all right. We are, unfortunately, we're out of time, but I want to thank both of you for being here in the studio with me, and Yasha in Washington. Appreciate you taking the time to talk with us as well. Well, the day continues online. You will find us on X, also known as Twitter, and...
That's great. That's great. Okay. We spent basically all of today's stream going over the current news, which is good and important, but I also didn't provide any segments for my editors. So I want to do a bit of a summary thing, okay? We don't normally do it like this. I'm going to be operating at what I would consider peak efficiency, which is probably to, like, the average Mexican immigrant in America, maybe like 4 to 5% efficiency. Like, I'm going to hit it hard for a white boy streamer, but for a guy who has a white van outside of a Home Depot, I feel like, they pass me by. It doesn't even look like I'm moving. But I'll try my best. Isn't that what matters most? The segmentable bits in the news coverage? Nah. You gotta hit it punchy with people, okay? 1 second. I shouldn't gotten rid of some of the links that I was looking at. Can somebody provide for me the graph of where the youth vote went in this election? Can one of you guys get that for me? It'd be much appreciated. How do you solve a problem that a person doesn't actually have? The same way they came to believe they had that problem, which is with a narrative. Thank you, Mir. Thank you, Usamara. Your German gods will honor you after your passing. Whatever the you believe in? Wotan or something? Maybe. Okay, listen up. Obviously, I mean, I've talked a bit about the German federal election results. Obviously, the AfD has risen. There is some positive news here that I want to focus on because it's important not just to go with like the, you know, oh, the AfD overperformed. The AfD performed about as expected in the polling. We've known this would be happening for a long time. This is just a continuation of the shift that we've seen in basically all of the West, which is a rejection of neoliberalism, a rejection of the status quo, people desperately looking for a narrative to explain why they're so unhappy with the status quo and what can be done to fix it. The AfD thinks that putting all people with more melanin than me in a wood chipper would magically fix their you know, their waning economic outlooks, and Die Linke thinks that you could make people's lives better by doing the policies that everyone knows will make people's lives better. I don't know which one I've decided on, okay? So the AfD got 20% or thereabouts, which means they're the runner-up in the federal elections. I want to talk a little bit about Die Linke, okay? The left party. And by a little bit, I mean, you know, maybe a little bit, just a little bit, okay? Because, like, I don't know, guys. They did pretty good. If you take a look at the youth voting here, Die Linke literally performed the best for under 25s based on the exit polling data following the election, and it seems to be bearing out in the total data as well. The exit polling is pretty accurate here. That's huge. Keep in mind, okay, Die Linke, they were like trending at 3% some months ago and have exploded up to a result of 8.5% in this election based almost entirely off of an aggressive social media campaign. I mean, by speaking to young people, by aggressively engaging with them, Die Linke has shown that the only viable future for the, for not just for Germany, I guess, but for the entire developed West is, it's socialism or barbarism, folks, okay? It's also a great, I guess, roadmap or contrast to the direction the Democrats have taken, where like you do this little like you know, fiddly adjustment of the existing numbers in a way that doesn't fix the narrative or address people's needs. Die Linke is a radical party, you know, and they don't shy away from it. Here's some messaging from Die Linke Queer. Ain't that nice? There's a lot of Die Linke messaging that I've seen online over the past few months where I would say that they economically, you have a lot of Bernie Sanders notes, but socially, they're pretty aggressive as well. What was it? Someone in chat posted this. It was a quote from somebody from Die Linke, and it was so based. It was like one of their members was asked if they were woke or how they felt about wokeness, and their answer was, I don't know what woke means, but I am. Which is literally the best possible response. Yissi said that? Fantastic. Which is real as hell, because on one hand, it acknowledges the absurdity of the question, you know, what is woke? Nobody knows what the woke means anymore, okay? Everything's woke, nothing's woke. Woke is like a broad term for social progressivism, but then you'll have people saying it's like based in anti-woke to, you know, post videos of white people from the hippie movement dancing because they're still white, so is being a hippie woke? Well, if you ask the hippie back in the 1960s, they would have been pretty damn woke by their standard. It doesn't mean anything. Woke is when black people, okay? Woke is when you see DEI jawlines on 3D models of women in video games. Woke doesn't mean anything, you know? So you acknowledge the absurdity of the question. I don't know. I don't know what woke means, but whatever it is, I'm it. The Democrats lost so much ground over the past few years by running away from every position they could have defended. They ceded the ground to the Republicans, right? So when Kamala Harris is asked what she'll do to defend trans people, she'll leave it to the states. She doesn't bring it up, you know? On every issue, you cede ground. So the only people talking about it are the far right. And with the far right narrativization being the only thing people are hearing, obviously public opinion shifts. The average American today is a lot less pro-trans than they were just 5 years ago. During the first Trump term, Democrats lost us that ground. They lost us that ground in immigration as well. Back when Donald Trump was in his first term in office, Democrats were so pro-immigrant rights. Oh, they were so committed to the welfare of those immigrants. Just ignore how many deportations Obama engaged in. Then, once Biden took over, we'll keep the status quo, actually, you know? We'll get rid of the mandatory family separation policy, but that only affected a few thousand families. We'll keep the, like, millions of deportations ongoing, you know, rolling over the years, all of the interactions and people getting sent back. And they stopped talking about it because they no longer had the oppositional position. And then, who do you hear talking about immigration? Republicans. Republicans got everyone to believe there was a big migrant crime wave. You take a look at Google Trends for migrant crime, there's a big spike up during Biden's term. Why? You take a look at the data, there was no spike in migrant crime. The crime didn't increase. The talking about crime did. You guys get my point. The point that I'm making here is that Die Linke is the real alternative for Germany. The AfD doesn't represent anything more than continued financial austerity, but with more racism. Nobody's lives are going to be made better. The original Nazi Party got to benefit from the fact that they were rebounding from a depression, the Great Depression. And they got a lot of war funds to fuel their treasury with. It was an unsustainable venture that was going to collapse no matter what, but they benefited from the optics of pulling the German people out of the Great Depression. The AfD today does not have that benefit. Germany is slumping, but it's no Great Depression. There's no big, guaranteed rise up that they're going to get to coast off of. There's no rising tide lifting their boat. The AfD isn't an alternative for Germany. It's just, what if we were more racist in addition to all of the existing social, economic, and foreign policies that worsen people's lives? There is a real alternative for Germany. A real one. Not just if will being more, what if rather than being 57% anti-migrant, we turned it up to 74% anti-migrant? Would that somehow fix all the fundamental inequalities of our society? Like, come on, wake up. We know what the answer is here, And they've done really well. Why is the leaflet in English if it's for a German election? There's a lot of English media in Germany. A ton of Germans speak English. Oh, you want to see something else from Die Linke queer? That's cute, isn't it? Danke. Die Linke doesn't run from their positions. They stand by them. You think it's audacious of them to imply they like Karl Marx? Sure. F yourself then. You Nazi fucks. 20% to the Nazi Party. You're going to get mad at somebody for being pro-Marx? Oh, what did the guy do? Support economic equality? Eat shit. Stand by your positions. Plant your damn feet in the ground. Be loud, be proud. Give people a narrative. Hold strong. You get me, right? What did I miss? What's this poster? Don't worry about it. Mark's looking extra curvy. He's on the dance floor. He's getting his exercise. Libs are afraid of having an ideology because it means actually having to argue for change. Yeah. Liberals used to be more effective, aggressive advocates for a specific position. Why is it so hard to be anti-Israel in Germany? What's wrong with them? Don't worry. An anti-Israel party has done very well in the recent elections, nuts. They're just not anti-Israel for the reasons you and I might appreciate. Anyway, look, Die Linke's recent overperformance is a huge positive marker. I just want to say, they only started bumping up right before the election. I genuinely think that if they had been given another year of this run-up, they might have ended up being the number 3 vote. Maybe even the number 2 vote, I really do think that's possible. I really do think that Germans are looking for, begging for, a way out. We'll see how it goes. Steal the green vote, more SPD vote, hell, more CDU vote. We'll see. Why did Linke have such a sudden poll boost? Social media engagement. The AfD have been really aggressive on social media, especially on Twitter, because Twitter is a Hitler website and they've been getting artificially boosted by Elon Musk. I mean, Elon Musk literally attended one of their rallies virtually, so it shows you where his allegiances are. Also, he Sieg Heiled at the inauguration for Trump. Which they couldn't even show on German media. They had to censor it. But over the past 3 months, Die Linke has been gunning really hard on social media, which is fantastic stuff. Of course, the problem being for the moderates, the Green Party, the SPD, and the CDU in Germany can't do anything interesting on social media because they have no plans for the future. They have no plans for the future. What are they gonna do? What are they going to talk about? Like watching Hakeem Jeffries try to run a social media ground game. What the f*** are you going to do? This site shows where the voters for Die Linke came from. Yeah, hold on one second. For the left party. Yeah, this is a good graphic. I like this. Voter migration. They lost some members to BSW, which is good. You don't want these people in... You don't want them here, okay? But they got a lot of people from SPD and the Greens. And they even picked up some people from CDU and FDP. And a good number of non-voters, which is nice. That's the left party, that's Die Linke. And then, of course, the AfD, which did very well, got a huge number of non-voters, mostly East Germans, I imagine, and picked up pretty broadly across the FDP, CDU, and SPD, and picked up a tiny amount from the left party. So 2 million. Like I said, people want a narrative. East Germany, why are you like this? Because they were kind of left to rot after reunification. Where did all the SPD voters go? Yoink, lost to CDU. Where'd the CDU voters go? Yoink, lost to AFD, but gained by SPD. You get it. The point is that the biggest gain for the AFD was from non-voters. Die Linke won with first-time voters, with the AFD a distant second? Really? Percentage-wise?